Sometimes smart people do dumb things. This dare was one of those things for me. Instead of taking somebody else's dare, I dared myself to walk from Amherst to home, 75 miles. I'd never done anything like this in my life before, and I chose to not prepare myself. I preferred to take my chances with the rain, with food, with sleep, and even with my body's ability to cover 75 miles. I left at about 9 p.m. on Monday, April 22nd, with barely enough food in my backpack for half a day and only a single change of clothes. So here we are on Route 9. Journey has just begun. Feeling pretty good so far. Legs are warming up. Probably got about 70 miles left, maybe a little more. Things were looking up for me, and I had officially taken my first steps toward a dream. I kept that pace up for another 2 hours before I decided it was time to stop and rest and let my legs recuperate a little bit. I've covered about 15 miles, stopping by this lovely creek that hopefully you can hear bubbling in the background. Moon's peering down, almost full. Couldn't ask for more, really. It's funny how quickly a dream can turn into a nightmare. Suddenly it had dropped below freezing, and all I had for warmth was one of those foil emergency blankets. I had it pulled over me, and I shivered under my tinfoil tent for 4 hours. Eventually I had enough and got up and started walking. I walked and walked until 6 a.m. rolled around, then I walked into the woods. The sun was coming up, and I was hoping I could catch some sleep as the day warmed up. And suddenly I was cold again. I opened my eyes and looked up. Clouds had covered the sky, and a fog had rolled in. I shivered there for another hour, hoping the day would warm up, but it didn't. I kept thinking back to the book I was reading before I left, a book about those brave Spartans at Thermopylae. Polynikes, Dionysus, Leonidas, and the hellish training they had to endure day in and day out, and how paltry my pain was in comparison to theirs. But they had each other, and I only had me. It was still really cold. Somehow I kept my mind focused on the task at hand. I walked and walked and walked and walked, and the miles rolled by into oblivion, all seeming the same because of that damned fog. Yet, there was a measure of peace to be found in that monotony, with the miles rolling by, almost unchanging. It was like I was in limbo. It hurt. It was painful. And I didn't know what I was after, but I kept going. So here we are at some dingy, rundown building at the border between Leicester and Spencer, which means I've traveled about 35 miles of the total 75-ish. Give you more of an update when I get to Worcester. I bought like 2 extra layers, and I'm still freezing. But we press on. That we do. Peace out. I pushed on for another 5 miles after that, until I reached a Walmart. Stopped in there to get some food and water, and to warm up. After an hour of sitting there eating, I realized I was still shivering, even in the warmth, under 5 layers of clothing. I bought a thermometer and took my temperature, 95 Fahrenheit, hypothermic. It started to rain outside. I had no rain gear. It was time to throw in the towel. My journey came to an end after 40 sleepless, hypothermic miles. Every journey starts with a step, and while we may not know how those journeys will end, we can decide how they start. Mine started with a dream. I may have failed to reach my destination, my point B, as we say in parkour, but after a month of reflection, I've come to realize that failure is just another part of life, and each of these failures leaves their mark, whether physical or not. And those marks that we bring with us into the future Those bruises and bumps and scrapes and cuts, they're the price we pay to learn what's what.